No, the Ghoul is hot. The Ghoul is hot. Like, not an if the Ghoul is hot, not a hear me out. No, that is an objectively hot Ghoul.
Well, now that is a very small drop in a very, very large bucket of drugs.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Awards Tour podcast. I'm your host, Jacqueline Coley, and I'm joined here today by a man that really does need no introduction after how many years you've had in Hollywood, but Mr. Walton Goggins, sir, thank you for being here.
Thank you very, very much for having me.
I'm so excited to talk about so many aspects of your career, but I have to begin with this incredible role that you're currently promoting right now with Fallout, playing the Ghoul and Cooper Howard. This has to be just kind of one of those great calls to get, knowing you're gonna get to play this character. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about how you got invited into the world of Fallout.
You know, it was written by Geneva, Tort Robertson, and Graham Wagner, and directed by Jonathan Nolan, right, and Lisa Joy and Kilter Films. Geneva was an old friend of mine. We did Tomb Raider together, and Graham I didn't know, but I'm a very big fan of, and I didn't know Jonah, but have been a fan of his going back to Memento. I met him once at an Academy Award luncheon when we were nominated. We won for our short film, the short film that we did, and it was the same year that Memento came out. He says he remembers it. He's lying. But I was, you know, and have been just a fan ever since, and they wanted to get on the phone and talk about, you know, this project. I really didn't know anything about Fallout. When they told me what it was going to be about, I went online and kind of read like an article about it, and there was a character there, and I thought, oh, well, maybe it's going to be the hero of the story, the Vault Dweller, and then stopped kind of reading the article, and we got on the phone and we started talking, and like a Zoom call, and literally 3 minutes into it, I said, I'm in, just so you know, I'm in. And he said, well, don't you want to know what you're playing? In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh, that's the hero, you know? And he said, you're playing, I said, no, it's irrelevant, I'm in. And he said, well, you want to read a script? That's irrelevant too, man. Yeah, sure, I'll read a script. And he said, well, you're playing a guy called the Ghoul, and he's been walking an irradiated landscape for 200 years, and he doesn't have a nose. And I said, you know what, maybe I do want to read those scripts. You mind? Is that crazy? Could I do that? Yeah. Really? And then we, you know, I read it and called them immediately afterwards, and I said, I'm in, you know, noseless and all, wherever you want to go and whatever you want to do. And it just says so much about so much, and I'm just grateful to be invited to this table with these artists.
For folks that don't know, that haven't watched Fallout yet, which please do.
Come on, why haven't you watched it yet?
I mean, seriously, honestly. 3 billion minutes have already been watched. It's Amazon Prime's like most watched show, and they've had a few, so that's saying something. But I think it's interesting that it plays within the land of post-apocalyptic settings. Also, it's modern-day Western. And your character obviously lives in that sort of like a man with his gun in the midst of craziness, like it was in the Wild West. Yeah. And, you know, on the Awards Tour podcast, we like to reflect on someone's entire filmography. I don't know if it was the casting directors just hearing that beautiful Southern twang with you, but Westerns have been a part of your sort of like entry into Hollywood from like moment one, but you're also a huge fan of the genre. Is that one of those things where it's like you're just glad that what you like also ends up to be what you do? Because you've done quite a few. I've done
a few, you know, over the years. I mean, I'm trying to think of like the very first one you people have seen, but maybe there was one before this, Shanghai Noon, was a comedy, and with Jackie and Owen, and obviously the Hateful Eight. I suppose Django on some level could be a Western, and then a few, you know what, I did, okay, you ready for this?
Yeah.
I did the Cherokee Kid.
Yes.
With Sinbad.
I do know the Cherokee Kid with Sinbad.
And Sinbad, you know, it was James Coburn.
Yeah.
You know, and it was Sinbad. And
back when it was Sinbad.
And we filmed out at one of these places, maybe Santa Clarita or something like that, out there, and it was such a big deal for me. Everything that I do is a big deal for me. I don't take anything for granted. But that particular day, I only had a couple of days out there. But getting to meet Sinbad, and I loved him, and it just so happens that his birthday is the same day as mine, November 10th. So you got a couple of Scorpios.
Scorpio energy. Yeah. I'm a Cancer. Scorpios and Cancers, we get along.
We get along. Yeah. And Burt Reynolds was in that too, and then a few others kind of along the way. I am a very big fan of the genre. I kind of grew up like a lot of people, kind of watching westerns, but I didn't have the wherewithal to really appreciate and understand westerns the way that I have since moving to Hollywood. When I was 19, we watched movies as a kid. But my mom, we had other things.
Yeah.
It wasn't. I didn't go sneak off to the cinema and find myself in the cinema. It wasn't that. There was enough drama in my own household. It's like being in a movie in my household growing up. But I gravitated towards the genre. And what I loved about Fallout, one of the many things that I loved about Fallout, because it isn't inherent in the pilot of the show, this Western kind of element to this experience. And once I got to, and the audience, once you get to episode 2 or 3, you realize that the Western themes in this story aren't there for, they're not gratuitous, right? They're organically weaved into the story, predicated on the person's experience that I also play, Cooper Howard. And so I've never seen that really done before, and quite in that way. Usually it's like, okay, this is a Western, but it's not. It's a Western. It's many things. It's science fiction. It's a Western. It's a post-apocalyptic kind of world. It's a comedy. Yeah. Right.
There's some romance.
It's a romance. Yes, that's exactly right. A love story and
a family story.
And a family story.
And all of those play at like a very high level. One of the things that struck me watching your performance in this is I saw little touches of everything that you'd done before. We didn't even mention Justified. Obviously, that's also another modern Western that you played inside. But there's aspects of everything I think I've seen you've done in previous aspects of your filmography in this performance. It's sort of the swagger that you brought to like a performance like in The Shield, maybe a little bit. And it's the comedy that you bring in Righteous Gemstones. But in addition to that, it is sort of like the broad audacity of stuff you do in like The Hateful Eight. And all of that is in this. What would
you talking politics?
Yeah, seriously. I mean, I'm not lying. But what would you say was the most challenging aspect for you as an actor? Because I know you're a very thoughtful one in that you're going on there, you're hitting your marks, and you're living whatever you feel on the page. But they're difficult days, and this role asked a lot of you, from performance to stunts to cosmetic and prosthetics and everything. What was the part of it that you were like, all right, we got to get this together?
Well, that was it was a lot. I'm a person that I tend to move a lot as a person, just in my own life. I'm constantly kind of walking around my house and cleaning. I'm a big obsessive compulsive cleaner.
The world needs you.
Hey, I'll come clean your house. That's what I do. Knowing that this was going to be a lot of time in the chair. I'd only done that. Well, I've done it a few times, but I knew that was going to be challenging for me right out of the gate. But I knew that it would take, a certain amount of mental preparation. And I think anyone who's ever gone through this process, right? There are so many actors over the years that have experienced this, but they would all, say the same thing. It started off as 5 hours kind of in the chair, and we got it down to an hour and 45, 2 hours by the time we were done. So once I got kind of used to that, the very first day we started filming, it was like 106-degree heat index in New York, which is where my first day was. And I walked out feeling like $1 million from an air-conditioned trailer. You know what I mean? I was like, I got this. I see myself, I can do this. And then, I had the costume on and then walked out, and it was that hot. It's like starting to sweat and like starting to like have a panic attack. Oh my God, okay, it was 3 hours just to get to this point, and now we start work. And I got down there and put the retainers in my mouth, which I just didn't think about. I couldn't really get the words out. It took a while to really understand how to talk with these things in my mouth. And after the first take, I literally sat down on a log and I said to myself, you need to get it together. You got to pull it together right now, man, because you're too old for this. This is day one, man. You have 9 months to go.
Okay.
Just calm down. Just relax right now. And but then it just kind of becomes your new normal, and it was a privilege to play both of these people, and to explore a lot of the themes that are being explored in this show.
I will go ahead.
In the story.
And in the story. I don't want to spoil too much for folks that haven't gotten to see it yet, but the one thing that they will learn in episode 1 is this is really like a three-hander in the sense that it is a three-person story, and between Ella and Aaron, who play Maximus and Lucy in this, and yourself, depending on the day of shooting, one of the three of you is...
Well, and if you think about it, I mean, it's three people, not based on, but inspired by the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that they all have something that they're looking for.
Yeah.
And that was kind of the premise. I think that was their jumping off point.
They can't call the ghoul ugly. We'll get to that in a minute. They can't call the ghoul ugly. The internet has spoken.
You don't want to call the ghoul ugly.
we know it's not. But it is the three of them. But depending on what day of the week it is, you're number one on the call sheet, which I think being a character actor for so many years, that is a responsibility and it is a privilege. And I'm not saying it's the first time you've ever sort of stepped into those shoes on a set, but with the budget and the epicness and sort of like the grandeur that you knew you were approaching with this Fallout, how was that for you, having been, the character supporting performance, stealing every scene that he's in, I might add, ladies and gentlemen, on those ones, but to step into that aspect of this performance, because I don't think there's a bigger version of this, of you doing it, where you're leading a cast of people. And as much as I love Ella and Aaron, they're relying on you and your years of expertise. I mean, this man was on the set of 90210, ladies and gentlemen.
Incredible performance, by the way. Yeah. Extraordinary. I can't believe it. I'd get nominated for an Emmy for that. Bullshit. Okay, here's my career and my philosophy, my outlook on life. It's been a great stock, and that it's always gone up. It's dipped for sure, but it's always gone up. And God or the universe, whoever she is, has given me opportunities that I was ready for, right? I've been in this business for a very long time. I've worked with most of my heroes, and I was wise enough to be quiet for years and just observe the masters around me. I mean, I did The Apostle with Duvall when I was 24 years old, and everybody that I worked with over the course of my life, and you pick up things, right? You pick up how to run a set. You pick up the best ways how to do it, and the worst ways, right? You see how it should be done, and how it shouldn't be done, and how to inspire people, and how to keep yourself inspired. And like I said, I've had a lot of people step into that role for me along the ways. One of the biggest, most influential people in my life in this particular aspect that you're talking about is Michael Chiklis. And I saw over the course of the 7 years of doing The Shield, I saw this man step into that leadership role. Yeah. And so I have effectively learned from the best. Yeah. I've had the opportunity to be number one on the call sheet more than a few times in my life. It was, I knew this was a lot of money. I knew that there were a lot of expectations, but the only thing that I'm in control of, and I fervently believe this, is my contribution, right? And I can work harder than everybody in the room, and I can listen, and I can turn myself over to an imaginary set of circumstances, and care and be committed to the degree in which I care and am committed to the things outside of this business, right? Yeah. That's all I have control over. I knew that, Jonathan Nolan knows exactly what he's doing. Every head of department on this show showed up with that inspiration and that commitment to the process. So I was never, on my own, but I do know how to set a tone, and I do know how to lead people. And in some ways, I'm not an alpha, and I'm not a beta. I really am a gamma, and I think that's if I like anything about myself.
God, the
that
world
is,
could use a lot more of those.
maybe, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, I can lead
Yeah.
and I can follow,
Yeah.
and I've always kind of been able to do that, and so I feel like at the outset of this experience, once I got over the enormous psychological pain, if you will, or the anxiety of being the ghoul and sitting in that chair for that long and having this makeup on my face. Once I got over that, I really enjoyed it. And I knew that, you know what, I got this.
Yeah.
It's okay. And if I'm calm, everybody else is calm. And we're there to tell a story that has value.
I think you're very thoughtful too with your projects. I just look at some of your more recent works, if we're gonna just put a highlight of some of your stuff that folks will remember from like literally recent years. The Hero in I Am Virgo. This, we have You're About to Be in White Lotus. And
wait a minute, really? Am I?
You're about to be in White Lotus. And then you're also in contention for the last season of The Righteous Gemstones. So that's kind of crazy. What is it about projects that really draws you to it? Is it the people? Is it the work? What's making it? Because I don't think it's like, hey, this is what's going to be the next cool check. I think you're very thoughtful about what you want to do.
I think so. I'd like to think that.
Yeah.
You know? And I did this movie directed by Bill Pollard called Dreamin' Wild. And it's this true story about these two brothers who made this album. And it's me and Casey Affleck. And this is just an example. I started talking to Bill we had this meeting, and we were kind of going back and forth, and he asked me something at the end of this conversation. It's a role that I felt like I really wanted to do because I felt like I had something to say. And he asked me point blank, how do I cast two leading men to play two roles where there could be only one leading man? He was being kind. I mean, you know, I know the stories I've been in where I can be a leading man. but that being said, I said to him, you know what, I don't know. And I think you're right. And I think this isn't the right job for me. You know, as much as I'd like to do it, I think you're right. I'm gonna bow out of this one. He said, you're what? I said, I just don't, it's not right. You know, I agree with you, and I appreciate it. I appreciate the time. I talked to my agents afterwards, and they said, you did what?
Agents are not going to like that conversation.
It's just not right, you know, it's just not right. It doesn't feel right. And then I thought about it for a day, and I found it. Like, oh, I know what it is. Oh, if I do this, and if I have this mustache and I do the hair, oh, I got this. I got this. I called him back and I said, hey, you know, that job that I quit, can I have it back?
Can I have it back?
Please, can I have it back? But so to answer your question, to be thoughtful about projects, I really, at this point in my life, when it's a luxury to have the option of saying no, it really comes down to, I feel if I have something that I can bring to the table, and if the director likes that, regardless of how flashy or not flashy it is, that's irrelevant to me. Then I'm in, and that's really the only way that I pick something.
I want to bring it a little bit back to the Ghoul. We kind of hinted at this the other day because you're right, it is a physical transformation, but I think you and Jonah and Geneva and Graham and everybody that worked on it, including the makeup and application folks, Vincent, they all made the Ghoul what he is. But I'm going to say this again because the internet has had its day. Have you seen how hot people think the Ghoul is? Like, did your son, who I know is a big Fallout fan, and like introduce you to the series, did he send you the thirst TikToks of like, they think the Ghoul is hot? Or have you seen any of this?
I've seen some of it because friends have kind of sent it, and there's been some articles out there, and so I have seen some of it. It was surprising.
Really?
Yeah.
You knew that he was going to be attractive. Like, he's going for, you know.
I mean, like, he doesn't have a nose, so I mean, like, he's attractive to me, but if he's going to be attractive to somebody else, you have no idea. I don't know. Is it the swagger makes the man or the woman? I guess.
I think look, you already had people being like, yes, Mr. Walton Goggins, sir, but with the Ghoul, you're right, it is a certain amount of swagger in that balance, but No, the Ghoul is hot. The Ghoul is hot. Like, not an if the Ghoul is hot, not a hear me out. No, that is an objectively hot Ghoul.
Okay, why do you think he's hot?
Because, first of all, the introduction, he's hot. Like,
Yeah,
from the
he's
minute
cool.
you dig him out of the grave, I'm like, whatever
Yeah.
this man has to say,
Yeah.
I'm in for it. And some of the lines
Yeah.
that he says throughout the story, because as much as he is somebody that does not let this sort of like Pollyannish idea of the world that Lucy's character is trying to bring to him, he's like, is that the truth or is that what he told you? He's very earnest. He's very calls it like it is. He's not, he doesn't lie. And that is very attractive,
Yeah,
even
it
in
is
an
very attractive.
apocalyptic
Yes,
type world.
absolutely.
But yeah, no, they did the makeup to make you look good. And you're right, it is in the eyes and what
Yeah.
you were able to sort of to do with the eyes.
Well, like you said, we talked about it for the better part of 6 months before we began the process. And we wanted the audience to lean into the experience and not to be turned off by it.
Yeah.
And to see his map as kind of a roadmap, to see his face as a roadmap to his experiences.
Yeah.
And with the help of Vincent Van Dyke and the people and my buddy Jake Garber making the pieces and applying them, we found they were able to construct it in a way that allowed it for it to still be me.
Yeah.
The pieces were thin enough, and the wisest decision I think all of us made was not putting contacts in and keeping my eyes, because that's really what made him human.
Yeah, he's very human, and I can't wait for whatever they have to do more with season 2. We're actually on this season of the awards tour also going to talk to your I Am Virgo co-star Jarrell Jerome. I want to talk a little bit just real quickly about that character, because that whole show, which is not as widely seen, I think, as Fallout, although folks still have a lot of time to catch up on it.
A lot of time.
But it's
revolutionary.
It is revolutionary.
It is a
and what you were
revolutionary
doing
experience.
to the superhero genre and consumerism and all of that, I know it's from the brains of Boots Riley, but that has to be a very, I think some actors would have shied away from that. Like, they would have been scared to have to do, to approach it the way that you did, because that is a role that you play brilliantly, but it is not an easy lift, I think.
Well, okay, Boots Riley has an enviable imagination,
Yeah.
right? I mean, the man is, he's brilliant. He is a genius, and he has this childlike curiosity about the world around him, and nothing is insurmountable in his imagination. And I'll tell you this because I haven't told it to anyone. We had been talking for 10 months really before filming had started, and just kind of going back and forth, and okay, well, who is this guy, and what are we really trying to say here? And okay, you know what? I think it's a superhero that's going through an identity crisis, right? I mean, that's kind of what it is. But I had something in my mind, and I was doing this other project simultaneously while we were going back and forth about these scenes. But I had it in my head, and I get to work the very first day for just a makeup test, and I'm sitting there in the chair, and there is a wig, this crazy kind of wig, sitting on this block. And I looked at it, I was like, wow, that's a crazy wig. Who's wearing that? And she looked at me like, he didn't tell you? he didn't tell me what? What do you mean he didn't tell me? That's your wig. What? And she said, yeah, they want you to kind of put it on. This is even before meeting Boots in person.
Wow.
It's all been over Zoom. So I said, okay, all right, let's put the wig on. And I looked at it, mirror, and went up and met him on set. And the first thing, other than like, hey man, what's going on? He said, so what do you think? I said, okay, I don't know who this guy is. I have no idea who this guy is. But if you're willing tomorrow, first day of work, to find out without judgment, then I'm in.
Wow.
And he said, yeah, let's find out who he is, man. And I showed up for work the next day, and then that was him. I had no idea. I didn't know that it was going to go in that direction at all.
Oh, I love that you didn't know.
Yeah.
That's a very Boots thing, though. Like, that just seems like something he would write in a screenplay.
Yeah, that's right.
You've had some incredible directors, Spielberg, Tarantino. On the television side, working with folks like Kurt Sutter and I'm like losing names.
Michael Dinner,
Yeah,
Graham
yeah.
Yost, Sean Ryan.
Sean Ryan.
Danny McBride.
Yes, Jonah
David
Nolan.
Gordon Green,
Yeah.
Jonah Nolan, Jody Hill.
Yeah, you've had some incredible.
Sorry, I'm going on and on about myself.
No,
So sorry about that.
incredible directors. What's been one of those unique but incredible pieces of direction that you've gotten from one of these great directors? Because I find with great directors, they can be judicious, but completely explicit.
Every great director, I think, has this something in common, and that, and Quentin said it better than anyone, but I think he's speaking for all of the people that I just mentioned, and the people that we're not mentioning, that I've had the opportunity to work with. But they are so good at casting. They hire a person that they know will give them 90% of what they're looking for.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's, Quentin says that. And it's the last 10% where they're, just fine-tuning everything.
Yeah.
Working with Quentin the very first time on Django, and then the same thing in The Hateful Eight. He's an actor.
Yeah.
And he's a wonderful actor. And so, and his dialogue is word for word, comma for comma, period for period. And if you ever did get stuck, or if there was something else that you think, this is feeling really good to me, and Quentin said, I hear it differently in my head, I heard it differently, I'd really like to hear that. It was, you want him to give you a line reading. It's like, how would you say it, man? Tell me what you have in your head. And then you say it almost verbatim, exactly the way that he said it, because he's Quentin Tarantino and he knows his material better than anybody, right? That's that kind of direction. Whenever a director kind of says that, or just subtle kind of nuances here and there. There was one thing this guy Scott Brazil, not this guy, our in-house director on The Shield, who passed away in our sixth season, and one of my best friends. But he leaned into me one day. I get little direction, really. People don't talk to me a lot. When they talk to me, what they have to say fundamentally changes everything that I'm doing.
Wow.
For the most part. And it's been like that for the last number of years. But this guy leaned into me, and he said, he just said, quieter.
Wow.
Be quiet. And that one thing, that one notion, I understood exactly what he said. I think the best notes are short and specific.
Explicit but judicious.
Yeah, explicit but judicious. Wait a minute, I'm gonna get that tattoo.
Yeah, I'm telling you what I'm saying, but I ain't gotta mess around with it.
Yeah.
I love that. I have to ask you, because I figure any actor that worked with Quentin up to this point is kind of lamenting the fact that he says it's going to be the last one, and now he's not. We don't even know what that last movie is going to be. But is that the type of moment where, when you hear that happening, you're like, if you need me to be a water boy, I'll be there, brother.
I think everybody has that feeling, right?
Did you do it though?
Everybody.
Would you send a little email and be like, hey?
I
Not saying you want something.
I think here's what I think. I think that it's just a given. It's implied, right? And so you out of respect for the man and the respect for his process.
Yeah.
I did not do that. I don't think I'm the only person who has not, who wouldn't do that. And I if the phone rings, the phone rings. And if it doesn't, you know what? It rang twice.
It did ring twice. It's really good.
And I've gotten that golden ticket and the invitation of a lifetime, and that at the end of every experience, it has to be enough for you.
Yeah.
Right. Even though it leaves you wanting more. I had it once.
Yeah. Well, I do know both from interviews, and then also I've heard him talk about, I've done a few Q&As with him. He mentions your show Justified every chance he gets. He's obsessed with it. He loves that show.
He does, yeah,
you know this. Don't act like you don't know this.
No, I know, yeah.
He's like, so
yeah.
I'm glad you got the call twice. I have to ask this because the internet would be mad at me, although Mike White and the HBO folks might come for me. Is there anything you can tell me other than you like Thailand right now since you're filming White Lotus? Literally, you're about to go hop a plane right back to Thailand. So
yeah.
Is there anything
what
you can
tell you?
Whatever you can tell me, the internet wants to know if you can, because you're in it. It's Mike White. That tells us a lot.
Yeah, Mike White directs every episode.
Oh, wow. Okay. I think that was in the deadline piece.
Wow. Okay. Can I say this? I'll say this. The person that I am playing has something in common with almost every character that I've ever played before.
Ooh. He has something in common with every character that you ever played before.
Including the Ghoul, by the way.
Including the Ghoul?
Yeah. You know what that is?
What?
He's a Scorpio.
Oh, stop!
Truthful! It's so true.
Now I'm gonna be like doing all da-da-da. Is there anything you got to do on this that you haven't got to do before?
On the White Lotus?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
This is nothing.
A few things I haven't gotten to do before.
Well, I'm completely excited about it. I'm even more excited that more folks, although a lot have already seen you in Fallout, are going to continue to see you in that, because I absolutely adore your performance.
It's good.
It really is good.
It's really good, and it's that kind of thing. I know we're wrapping up here,
Yeah.
but I will say this: over the course of my life, I have, whether it's the universe, whether it's luck, whether it's serendipity, or whether it is a manifestation, if you will, so many experiences in my life have come from meditating on it, or just I suppose being obsessed with it.
Yeah.
One, working with Owen, that was Bottle Rocket was one of my favorite movies, and then I got that phone call. Working with Duvall early on, and him still being a mentor in my life, that important. That was my guy. That's all that I wanted. With Quentin, with McBride, it was the same thing, and David Gordon Green. And Mike White is the same, and I never reached out to him before. I'm very respectful of people's process, but I did have a little doll made out of him, a little voodoo doll. No.
If you were praying to it, he would actually like that.
I'm so sorry, Mike. I did make a doll from you, and I prayed and I burned incense around it.
Please.
For years, going back to Enlightened.
Oh, Enlightened.
It's so old and falling apart.
You would have killed in Enlightened. No offense to anybody that was in it, but you would have been great in that. I could see you in a psych ward, coming to the other side of it. Yeah. I did want to ask this real quick thing about Fallout before we wrap you for today, is that for folks that don't know, there is an end to the season where you might be a man with another mission kind of thing. We might be riding off into the sunset and you've got a new bounty type situation. Have you talked to Graham, Geneva, Jonah, anybody, and said, hey, maybe where you think the Ghoul is going to go in season 2, or maybe where you hope he goes? Or if they get, Amazon hasn't officially said it's happening. It officially said it's officially said it's happening.
So if you watch it, you know that the story is going to continue.
Yes, continue. Okay, good.
We did talk about it recently, and I wasn't really concerned with big kind of. I can't even use the word character. I just don't like. I don't become characters. I don't like that word.
No.
But where I go, I'm just going to refer to it as me, because it is me. I am the Ghoul, and I am Cooper Howard.
Well, let's get that straight to camera.
I am the Ghoul, and I am Cooper Howard.
That's right.
So I'm more concerned with moments of humanity and specific things that I see in my imagination. They're very collaborative people, and so it is just kind of a conversation back and forth. But I could literally say nothing and read these pages, the words that come out of their imagination, and be happy. But yeah, there'll be an ongoing discussion. Why not? I mean, why do this if you can't collaborate?
Can you give me like a little teaser word? What can we expect for season 2? Anything?
Anything. God, because there are NDAs and lawsuits.
I mean, they haven't even done anything yet.
They just set up the writer's room. So I have no idea. I don't know. Here's what I do know. We're going to be filming it in the great city of Los Angeles, in the great state of California.
Okay.
And that's very exciting to me.
Okay, we can get that.
There we go.
Season 2, here we come. For now, you can see this gentleman in Fallout Season 1 and soon to be in White Lotus on HBO Max. Thank you, sir, Mr. Walton Goggins, for chatting today. And we will see y'all next time on the Awards Tour podcast.
Bye-bye, y'all.